All right, 202. We're going to get this show on the road. Welcome, everyone. We are going to have an amazing roundtable session today on transforming your training culture. So we want this to be interactive and we want this to be as realistic as possible. So we're going to talk about real world scenarios and actual examples of what's happening today in construction sites around the country and definitely around the Western New York area. So to begin with, I want to make some introductions. My name is Mariah. I'm going to be moderating the event. I'm on the CAHill team representing our marketing team. To our top left is Carly Hill. She is the founder, CEO, and owner of CAHill TECH. Carly established two innovative companies that serve the construction industry, CAHill Resources and CAHill TECH. Under her leadership, CAHill TECH developed Acquire, which is an award-winning e-learning platform that provides company-wide operations and safety training. We have John Papanetti, who is the Commissioner of Public Works of Orleans County. He is a team admin. He has over 30 plus years of experience in highway maintenance and custodial workers. Prior to his work as a county commissioner and highway superintendent, John worked 20 years in the private sector as an expert on bridge design, culvert design, and construction management. He's also a licensed professional engineer in New York and Pennsylvania. So because Father's Day was yesterday, John's going to grace us with some of his amazing dad jokes. So that's my challenge for you today. And then Kevin Labus is the founder and president of the Safety Collective. Kevin has served in the occupational health and safety field for over a decade with a degree in environmental engineering from Clarkson University. As president of the Safety Collective, Kevin and his team work with business owners, managers, supervisors, foremen, and employees to improve safety performance and training programs. So thank you, experts, for joining us today and engaging us with your amazing stories and your vulnerability. So we're really excited to dig in. The session is going to be about an hour long. And again, we're going to be talking to our panel of experts and you, all of our attendees today. We want this to be interactive about real world experiences and solutions to transforming your safety and skill training. So to begin with, so you get to know our experts a little bit better, we're going to get to know them on a personal level. And I'm going to ask the question, what is your personal why? Why are you working in construction, especially with all the changes that are currently happening? So I want to get the day started with Kevin. I just pulled that name out of nowhere, but Kevin, I hope you're ready.
Sure. Thanks, Mariah. Hello, everybody. Yeah. I love the construction industry. It's, I think it's full of some of the smartest, most talented people. And I don't know, they're not always disguised as that, which I think is pretty cool. There's a lot of people have, maybe a negative connotation about construction, and some of the smartest people I've ever been around are from it. So, that's part of it. A lot of people take pride in their work. It's dangerous too. And a lot of people really care about their families in the construction industry. And, I find it my duty in the training industry to let people know, how dangerous it is and be prepared for it. So, that pretty much sums it up.
Awesome. Thank you. Carly, if you want to take it away.
My personal why. I think when I was considering this question, first thing that comes to mind is like origins. For me, it's really what I know best, other than fine arts, because that's like my mother's background. So I was raised really with spending a lot of time with my dad building roads and bridges. And so it's what I know best, and it's very familiar for me. And I love, seeing the impact of my efforts, on the surroundings. I love nothing more than digging around in a ditch. Even as a kid, I can remember, that was like so much fun for me, is like figuring out how the water was flowing, what was blocking it up, and clearing it out. And that's just, in the little microcosm of your backyard. But now as an adult, it's really just kind of interesting, because it's like us and nature and structure and trying to like keep things stable for the population. So I think it's a really inspiring cause for me that I enjoy being a part of. And to, you know, just kind of piggyback off of what Kevin said, the people are just such salt of the earth and some of the like kindest, most generous people, you know, that I've had the pleasure to get to know as a, you know, a young person growing up. So it really is formative in character building for me, too, not just, you know, necessarily the act of the construction, but the team you're on when you're doing it. They're really great players.
Amazing. Thank you for that. So it seems like the red thread is people, which is great because our topic today is all about how we can make our people happier and safer. So John, I would love to hear your perspective on your personal why and why you choose to continue working and pursuing and improving the construction industry.
Thank you, Maria. So yeah, my personal why really started, I guess, as a young kid, playing in the sandbox, being outside, you know, always wanting to build things and, you know, create, tear things apart, put them back together in different ways, you know, things like that. It kind of really started my, you know, endeavor down this path of, you know, engineering, construction and stuff. But I think the one thing that really keeps me, you know, engaged in what we do or what I do on a daily basis is the unknown. It's the challenge of what's next, you know, and what's put in front of you and finding a way to solve that problem. Thinking outside the box a lot of times, you know, keeps your mind sharp and stuff. And I agree with Kevin, you know, some of the smartest people I've ever interacted with, you know, are definitely on the construction side, because I think it's just what we have to do. You know, you might have a set of plans sitting in front of you saying to build it this way, but when you're out there and you're looking at it, you're just like, this isn't going to work, or this doesn't fit right, or something like that. And, you know, you gotta be, you know, creative and figure out the best way to get it done, but still, you know, maintain the integrity of what the original intent of the design was. So yeah, so I think for me, it's just, you know, it's everything I do is just all about the challenge, you know, and the unknown, and trying to make sure that, you know, you're staying on top of things and finding different ways to do, you know, be innovative and moving things forward.
Absolutely. It makes you wake up every day to know that there's a problem that you have to solve, right? And the only one that can solve it is you and your team. So I think that's exciting and definitely a reason to get out of bed and to want to do more. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And the challenge isn't always, you know, engineering or construction related too. And hence probably what some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly. And thank you for transitioning me into that. We're going to dig into people and their motivations and culture, and what are some of the real tools that we can use today in our businesses to change the culture and change the attitudes of the teams that we work with. So that's what I want to answer today, is how can we empower those in the construction industry to be the best leaders and motivators as possible. So to all of our attendees that just joined, welcome. We have an amazing board of experts who we're going to be speaking with today. We got CAHill, Kevin Labus, and John Papanetti. I need to say that a little bit more Italian, I've been told, so I'm going to work on it. But we're going to jump right into some questions. I'm going to ask 3 or 4 questions to our experts. Please utilize the chat tool that's in the bottom of Zoom. If you guys have any questions, please pop them in that chat and I'll make sure that they get answered before the end of this call today. So the first question we are going to ask is, I really want to just dive into practical solutions. So John, if you'll start us off on this question, what are the realities that you're seeing in the labor force today that are placing strains, new strains and different strains that we haven't seen before on workplace culture?
Well, one of the things I've noticed since I started this position as Commissioner of Public Works of Orleans County about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. And, you know, the first year I kind of took a backseat approach to, you know, this new adventure of mine, and just to kind of absorb everything that's going on around me before I, you know, try to make it my own, or, you know, is there areas of improvement I could do, or what do I do to change culture, or does the culture even need to be in changing at all, you know? But I think one of the challenges that I found real quick was I was faced with a workforce that was, a lot of them were ready for retirement. And, you know, a year into my, you know, my tenure here, COVID hit, which was a major challenge for all of us. But being on the public side, we were considered essential employees, so we all stayed working, but a lot of those people who were ready for retirement or could retire, decided to get out then. And then I was faced with trying to backfill 30, 25, 30 plus years of experience with somebody who, 1 or 2 years of experience, if that, because the way our hiring system is here is you basically hire at the bottom. Can't bring anybody on with experience because you can only pay them a certain amount of money. So pay scales and flexibility within the ability to hire somebody with experience and pay them for what they're worth. I'm very limited on that ability. So it really changed the culture here, because now I'm dealing with the struggles of hiring somebody with no experience and trying to train them with guys that aren't fully experienced yet, that are still here. So it's kind of like that, that evolution, but we lost pretty much everybody at the top. So there was really no good, circle of, new people coming in, getting trained, gaining that experience. They become the middle level people, and then they move up, and stuff. It was kind of like all the old people out, all the new people in, and we're kind of got this this lull or this gap that we're trying to fill. And it was a challenge. It still is today for us. But I guess as we probably have to talk further, one of the nice things is Carly happened to come along shortly after that and really, gave me an avenue to help supplement that experience that I lost, to help with training and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, it's, for me, even before COVID, this has been kind of an evergreen challenge in this industry, is that turnover piece, right? Where you have someone with this real world experience. And I've talked, with my father about it. Back in the day, you used to hire off of a lot of family farms. That would be a great feeder for new hires, was family farms, because they would come having worked in adverse environments, having worked, dawn till, the work is done, mechanical around, fittings and parts and equipment, and figuring out how to troubleshoot something without necessarily having a shop, out in the field to keep up with production. So, those were a great feeder source for workers to come in. And even as you see different industries change, it has an effect, because this is one of those always steadily growing industries, is construction, because it grows with population. So it's very stable environment, and it's always a great place to find a job, prevailing wage, really, and typically great packages. So as people would come out of family farms and have different options to look at, this would be a really attractive industry. But as big agriculture and technological changes that come along, they really minimize the amount of labor it takes to run a farm, and family farms have been bought up by and large around the country. And so that labor pool also has dried up, not, totally, but it's diminished significantly as a source of workers. And then I think the other piece that's compounded the labor challenges goes along with a generational issue that we're just starting to realize as baby boomers are, like, as what John is having happen. That's the last generation in this country that we really talked about blue collar careers and trades track careers as something to aspire to. I think after that generation, we started as a country to really share the narrative that college was the way to go and everything else was a second choice. And so we're really starting to realize that coming to fruit now as baby boomers retire, because there's this kind of vacuum that it's not that there aren't kinesthetic people out there. It's just they haven't been encouraged, so they haven't had that early stage development experience that you might have if you'd been encouraged at a young age, elementary, middle school, high school, to pursue that as a very aspirational and respectable career track, right? I think those are some of the two biggest things that I've seen.
Yeah.
Interesting. Kevin, I'm curious to get your opinion, right? Because you work with many different types of clients and they're more project-based, and you've seen things move really quickly over the last couple of quarters, right? And years for that matter. So what are you seeing as far as new strains that companies are facing that are affecting culture and motivation?
Yeah, just a little bit, a tidbit about me that I'm not sure everybody is 100% sure what I do every day, but I don't know. I train about 1,000 workers every year in the construction industry. So I kind of, every issue that we're talking about right here is, all discussions that you hear throughout every one of your training sessions, and they're both Carly and John are spot on. I mean, these are really like the issues that everybody sees in this industry. And it's a challenge that we have to solve to move forward, really. That there's people that are coming into the industry that don't know how to use a tape measure, but I think there's a lot of people that get shut down by that notion and don't want to help that person. But the reality is we're gonna have to, because to move forward and to fill all the the labor challenges that we have, we're going to have to maybe get people who aren't familiar with this industry familiar very quickly. And whether it be in-person training, on the job training, video resources, I think companies need to think about hitting things from a lot of different angles, and because there's a lot of different personalities and people learn differently. And that's just my opinion from working with so many different people over the last decade or so, that and that's one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have to deal with.
Well, yeah, and I think you hit a really important thing that's really valuable to recognize, that goes to the whole cultural piece, is that your typical population that might have come to this industry is changing, and rightfully so. There's more women in the industry, in this workforce, as technology has changed. It's not just about physical strength. There's a lot of, and you mentioned it, intellectual things that come to play when you are working in construction. And then also people coming from other diverse backgrounds, other countries, first generation immigrants and things like that, who are really interested in these careers, but they come from very different cultural backgrounds. And I think if we are keeping our blinders on in the way that we hoard our knowledge and not sharing it to other people just because they're different than what we know, on the regular, we're really shortchanging, what we are responsible for, which is maintaining, the nation's backbone, right? So we kind of owe it to the country to be open to other people from other backgrounds so that we can actually do the work of the people.
Totally. So then on that note, Carly and Kevin, that kind of leads into my next question. What happens if we just don't, right? Like what happens if we don't pay attention to the people that may not know how to use a tape measure? What is the connection between a team's attitude, their motivations, their morale, and the work that you're going to get out of them? Like, is there a connection between that at all? Why would someone want to increase culture or team morale?
Yeah, I mean, I get the pleasure with working with a lot of different companies, and people are, and so does Carly, and John has had a lot of experience as well working at different places. So, but I can, give you a snapshot of people that are at all different, levels of the spectrum of what we're talking about right now. And the companies that excel are ones that embrace, differences and want to make each other better and treat each other like families. It's kind of as simple as that. Like I don't really need to elaborate more on it. It's just, it's like the golden rule. It's the stuff you learn in kindergarten. It's as easy as that. If you have that mindset, like things can blossom off of that.
Oh yeah, and what? Just to give a shout out to Western New York. Buffalo Bills coach Sean McDermott is all about like the positive attitude too. It's like treating people with respect, being open to new people coming in, and caring, watching each other's backs, treating each other as though they were your own, right? Your family, right? In a sense. And, the positive attitude, I mean, even I can think of like a couple truck drivers that come to mind right away. And, there's a big difference in what someone's kind of attitude has and the impact it has on the people around them. Yeah, it's just like COVID. It's contagious. Bad attitudes.
Yeah, you got that right.
This is why we have to like actually literally consciously recognize, are we ourselves, playing into that? Or are we pausing, recognizing when there's like a drama moment or a gossip or even just like kind of eye rolling, just to like pause and just recognize like, maybe I can just suspend that and drop a joke here. Okay, John, this is your dad joke.
What did the janitor say when he came out of the closet? Supplies.
You know what I mean? Like just humor, positive attitude really goes a long way for team morale.
You're right, Carly. I mean, it's the same thing. Like since I came here, even before I came here, um, you know, every morning I walk into the shop here, and the guys are standing around getting ready for our workload debrief and stuff. I say good morning to every single person that's on that floor. Morning, how are you today? Always treating everybody, greeting everybody with a smile, and stuff. And that's my personality. That's who I am as a person in general. And I try to just, kind of spread that, kind of aura amongst everybody, because it can be contagious. Someone who's very happy, very outgoing, willing to just, be the life of a party or whatever. People are attracted to that naturally. And it can be contagious. So, that's the attitude I bring in every morning, because 6 a.m. is, everyone's tired. A lot of people are up late, during the night, whether it's going to a kid's, one of your kids' games or late night concert, or me being a fireman, being up at 2 o'clock in the morning, running a fire call, running on a couple hours of sleep. But my crew also knows, like, when I'm not that kind of person, there's something wrong. And they know it, and they come up to you, you're all right today, you're just not seeing your happy-go-lucky self. So they realize it, they see it. So if they see it every day, and you show it to them, and and everything, I think that brings a lot to culture, and how you guys interact with people, or how we interact with people, really sets the tone, especially being the leader, the boss, or whatever. And I keep telling everybody, I'm like, listen, I may be the boss, but we're a team here. If I have a plan and we're going and we're doing something, where my thoughts are this or that, and you have a different perspective on it or whatever, I'm open for that discussion. And I think they like that. They like the fact that they potentially have a say, or their ideas are being received and considered and stuff. It may not be the direction we end up going. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but they're not shut down, and I think the culture here in my facility has been that in years past. The boss's decision was it. You didn't question it. You went, you did your job. And to me, that just causes animosity, within the workplace, and that doesn't help.
From your perspective, John, working with municipalities, and just with municipalities, is culture overrated? Is the general opinion, is it that culture is overrated and that skill and talent trump all, or what is the current perspective on that?
Well, I mean, as most people, know, everyone kind of takes that attitude that government workers, are lazy, and we don't we don't work a full 8-hour day, or things like that. And it's funny, because until you literally go to work for a government, I think you have a different outlook on how things are. Me being in the private sector, coming to government, I work harder now than I ever did before. And some of it might be to my own detriment, just for me as who I am, but there's no, the government still needs to move forward, just like the private sector does. We're working for the people. We're doing all kinds of stuff that keeps our communities going, whether it's keeping the roads, open so that people can get to work, go to the grocery store, take their kids to school, the buses getting around, pick kids up to go to school, keeping bridges, safe for crossing, things like that. I mean, I'm just talking what we deal with on a daily basis, but, it goes beyond that. So yeah, it's tough because I think government's always had a bad rap, but you come into it, and I think some of that carries into the attitudes of some of the people that work in government. You hear it, and when you hear it over and over and over again, you begin to think it. So if that's what they're thinking, then that's what I'm going to give them. I'm going to come to work, and I'll give them 4 hours of work. I'll show them I'll show them, it's like, so yeah, so you're trying to undo all that. It's like you want people to stay positive. You want them putting that, that 8-hour work day in, and stuff. And give back. I mean, it's one of those things where you still got to go home happy. I'm glad that you're doing your job every day because you want to wake up in the morning and still want to go back. So,
well, and John, I think just to kind of go, I don't know if you had another backup question or follow up on that, Mariah, but I just wanted to expand on something. And I think that a lot of people who are in organizations where they're leading, groups of people, or they handle HR, whatever it might be, that a lot of times you can feel this sense of griping or complaining or whatnot, but there's also the work we do is really hard, physically challenging, but what you accomplish is incredibly powerful. But when there's this societal kind of look down the nose on this type of work and what people are doing, that it can be just as contagious as a bad attitude. And sometimes when your culture feels like you're working so hard to but it's out of whack, sometimes it's because people are just still buying and they're hearing this narrative from outside. And so it's hard to change your culture internally if you're not really beating the drum. This is incredible work. Every single person you touch in your life counts on it. This is the backbone of the nation. These very aspirational things. This is how we're going to get to the hospital when we have to, because these people are showing up at 6 a.m. and doing the jobs that need to be done, even though by and large people will typically look down on these careers. And I think that's something to just recognize when it comes to culture, that it's not even necessarily just about the individuals in there, it's about the messaging that's coming in from outside. And the more you can do to combat that, to lift people up, to help them understand that this is truly aspirational work that we're doing. And, that can really go a long way with getting people to yeah, you're right. This is really amazing what we're doing, and feel better when they're showing up and dealing with the challenges that the work is gonna have, no matter what, right, Kevin?
well, and that's exactly it. When you look at municipal work in general in the past, people would go to work for municipalities because it was stable. It was a stable job. You got a pension. You had really good health insurance. The pay may not have been the greatest, but it kind of offset it with all the holidays off, your guaranteed vacation, time and stuff. You had really good health insurance benefits, and as time has gone on and that whole process, that whole thing has changed where the pay hasn't really, stayed with, inflation and things like that. And health insurance costs have skyrocketed, and government hasn't been able to continue to keep up with, offering people, I don't call it free healthcare, but, pretty, minimal cost healthcare and things like that. It's now, high deductible plans, with, huge, premium costs associated with it and stuff. It's not attractive anymore, low pay, and stuff like that compared to private sector side of things. So, one of the things that we, another kind of going back a little bit, challenges that we have is, you used to have a laundry list, 20 people apply for a job. I'm lucky if I get 2 people to apply to a job now, for a job opening, and the people that do, they're not really qualified. They barely meet the minimum requirements, for being a motor equipment operator. So it's still, one of those challenges we have, but social media kills us. social media has killed government and the municipal, I think, stigma of, there's just constant negativity towards politicians, and they always associate, what the politicians do with the government workers, and it gets hard to separate that when, social media is a very powerful platform.
Yeah, if I might, I just I guess want to offer a, kind of like a quick summary or solution to, there's a lot of, there can be, a lot of things that can derail your culture. And I mean, culture is not everything, but if you have a bad culture, forget about everything else, and I think that's kind of what everybody's saying. And I don't know, how do you start developing a good culture at your company? You need vision, and you need good leadership. Really, you can't just sit and look at your employees or your company and say, I want a good culture here. You have to buy into it and believe it. First, come up with a vision so people can get behind it and take pride in whatever, and I think everybody's saying that. I just wanted to summarize it, because if you're finding you're struggling at your company right now with culture or a lot of the things that we're talking about, in my opinion, that's how you hit the nail on the head to fix it, is what I was
You're
saying.
absolutely right.
Vision and leadership, without a doubt, and I'm sure that was something where I was thinking about too, is, what are the solutions? What are some of the tools? And, you mentioned vision, which is amazing. I think that's incredibly powerful, but you also mentioned, Kevin, leadership. And I think it would be really great to hear a little bit, on what you guys think about the whole leadership piece of it. I don't know, Kevin.
Yeah. Leadership is, doing what you say, saying what you do, believing in it. Accountability is huge. I mean, you can't set expectations and tell people how you want things to be, and then, be the first person, guilty of everything. You immediately lose respect. It's, it's a very, being a leader is a very extremely important position in the success of a safety program, or really anything at any company. And if a leader isn't leading by example and fostering an environment of respect, it's just all out the window. And I mean, leadership, I could go on for 5 hours about how important leadership is, but I'll shut up right now.
Do you have any
Chime
resources?
in.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just kind of as an example, before I even took this position at Orleans County, the firm I had worked at, we were doing a project for them where they were literally fabricating and building their first large span culvert projects in-house. So they cast all their beams, the deck panels, everything like that, right in the shop over the winter, and they, built it, in the summer. And, during the whole fabrication process, I was here, it was the first time I ever did it. So I was here working side by side with them, getting dirty, getting splattered with concrete and stuff. And in my work clothes, like when I say work clothes, I meant my consulting side work clothes, not my jeans and my t-shirt. I'm talking, dress pants and polo shirt, button up shirts. And they're like, oh, you don't have to do that. You're getting dirty. I'm like, I don't care. That's okay. I mean, clothes can be replaced. They can be washed, and stuff like that. So before I even had this job, I was showing them the type of person I was, willing to jump in and get dirty with them, no matter, what clothes I was wearing, or, and even when I was here, it's the same thing. We had just an example, we had a sanitary sewer backup over in one of our buildings, and, I went over there and the guys were working and stuff like that. And I jumped right in, and start helping them and stuff like that. We had one time where we got called because cleaning staff was short the night before. They had bugs all over the floor, dead bugs all over the floor. People were complaining. I went over there and got the broom out, swept the floor, and to me, that's, to add to, I mean, that's example, leading by example is where it's at, maintaining that positive attitude, no matter how bad it is or how bad it could be, you always have to stay positive you don't want to see, your employees don't want to see you break down, because the minute you do, they see that everything is failed. If they see that you're positive and you're moving forward and you're trying to find a solution to the problem, they're going to rally behind you, and step up and say, okay, I know I'm supposed to leave here at 2:30. And, as I sit here, on my window, I have windows both sides. My guys are filing out of here at 2:30. I'll have guys, if there's something that needs to get done, they'll stay. And even though I'm supposed to pay them overtime, they're like, they won't even put it on their timesheet. That's the, the type of leadership that I feel if you impose on them, they're going to give it back to you. Not all of them will, but there are some that will.
It's almost like character rubs off, right? If you act in the way that you want your employees to act, they will learn from that and they'll look at you like a role model, and that will almost rub off on them. So that's the way that they just start acting, because that's what they've seen and that's what they know is right. So it's interesting to hear about the influence that you can really have on people's lives when you're thinking about the individual that you're working with and helping to grow, right? And looking at the micro versus the macro.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, there's interesting kind of piece about when it comes to people, there's the other side of it too, where it's like, that's not my problem. And I think this is something we all have to understand isn't really a luxury that we have, as we have these really lean teams where people are kind of having to row harder and do more to be accountable to stepping up and taking something on and delivering it, so your team can count on you, and not this kind of perspective that it's really not my problem to deal with. And I think that kind of goes along part and parcel with, positive leadership. So if something, needs to get done, and it's not turning away from it and avoiding it, but going towards it, even though you don't maybe know the answer for how to fix it, people will then do the same when they see traffic control setups that aren't done properly on their way out of the job site. They would stop and fix it because they've been seeing that same attitude in the leadership is, it might not be my job to do, I might be off the clock, but I know that this is going to be a safer place for people, and it'll be better for the company if I just fix it. It'll take me 5 minutes.
That leads to a question that was actually asked by one of our audience members, Carly. So I would love to get your guys' opinion on the question of, it sounds like in that example, you would be prideful in your work if you were to stop and do something that would take an extra 5 minutes, right? How do you teach that? How do you teach someone how to be prideful in their work?
We should turn to that.
I think people, people do what they're measured on, first off. So I guess think about that for a second, like in a workplace, people like to do what they're measured on and get, positive recognition, whatever that might be for that. But also I think it's a big challenge, but you need to find what motivates people. There's people have different motivators, and you need to speak to those motivations. Some people, where I find in safety, where you can get on the same page with everybody is everybody wants to get home at the end of the day, including everybody in this webinar wants to get home at the end of today. Just driving in your car is dangerous if you want to get into that. So you can get on the same level with everybody by bringing that point up. That's a motivator, right? People just want to go home. But there's other motivators too. And so I think you need to learn what those are, so that you can start, gearing somebody towards taking pride. You can't just look at somebody and point at them and say, take pride in your work. That'd be nice, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't think it's necessarily teaching somebody how to take pride. It's showing. I don't think you can really say, like Kevin, you're saying, you can't say you need to take pride in your work and like kind of force them into it. You gotta set people up for success. That's how I look at it. You gotta know their attitude, you gotta know their personalities. You gotta play to their personalities, how to motivate people. I'm not gonna motivate, John Smith the same way I'm gonna motivate, Susie Homemaker over here, and stuff. It's gonna, everybody has their own personalities and like in different ways, you know, the reasons why they get up to come to work. You really got to get to know the person. You know, as a leader, you need to know on a personal level everybody that works for you or works with you. I don't like using the word for you, but works with you, because you're going to be able to, you know, I think empower them to do more and take that pride in the work that they do when you show interest in them, when you know, are willing to work side by side with them, and teach, when here I say teach them something, a new skill, or show them, you know, that there's other ways of thinking about different things, you know. So it's always a learning, you know, you try to make it out like more of a learning, you know, perspective than it is a, you know, show and tell, like, you know, here it is, now go do it. You know, let's learn how to do it, and then you can, you know, try it and, you know, practice and do what you need. It's the same thing, and you got to give everybody opportunities for growth. If you don't have growth, then, you know, there's no motivation, there's no pride. You know, they got to see that there's opportunities for, you know, for that to happen in their career and stuff. And I, you know, and that's how is language is how you know, I use different language with these guys. You know, they're not used to somebody coming in and saying that, you know, and talk to them like you're a professional, you know, I treat you like you're a professional. You know, we're a team, you know, there's no I's in anything that we talk about or how we explain things. It's always team this, growth opportunities here, you know, and stuff like that. So it really is, you know, what you're willing to put back into them, you know, is how you're going to get the pride, you know, out of them, and have them have that different attitude towards their work, you know, each and every day. You know, I try different things, you know, try to celebrate, you know, achievements and stuff, whether it's birthdays, you know, every month, you know, we celebrate, you know, everybody's birthday for the month of June. I bring in donuts, give everybody's birthday, whoever's birthday is, scratch off, you know, lotto ticket. I try to give out an employee of the month every day, and I try to make that not my decision, but more of the workers' suggestions. Hey, so-and-so did a great job here. You know, they went above and beyond, you know, and reward them, you know, for that. And, you know, when they start to see that there's, you know, there's acknowledgement for the efforts that they're doing, I think you're going to start to see more and more people take more and more pride in the work that they're doing.
For sure. Like
Absolutely.
an atta-girl or an atta-boy go a
Mhm.
long way, like recognition of, even if it's just like you said, we've done this in the past too, even what I've seen with other companies too, when people work to self-improve. We had a client that gave $200 gas cards to, and when they brought all their employees back from winter layoff, all the employees who had done training over the winter, you know, like just on their own, and like the highest number, you know, they set some kind of a threshold, they all got a $200 gas card at the big annual kickoff meeting. Like, so sure, maybe some of them, they're pretty shy, right? Like, don't even say it. But they, you know, brought them all up there, and even though they may pretend to be shy, everybody loves to get a little attaboy or an attagirl, like great job. And it sets a bar, you know, like I think someone measurable, I think Kevin mentioned, you know, like, look, this is something we're recognizing as positive and powerful and worth, you know, recognition. So then the rest of the team can kind of like aspire to that, going to like aspirational talk on like the big picture, but even in the little microcosm of the team is, you know, setting a threshold of achievement, so that then that's something for people to reach to, you know. Having stretch goals, like we have them here at our company. We set up stretch goals. Do you hit them all the time? That's what they're called, stretch goals. But, you know, being able to recognize the efforts that go into moving towards the big goal is goes a long way.
Absolutely. I love the direction that we're heading in. We have about 15 minutes left in the webinar. So I want to dive right into the nitty gritty so I can give people tools and resources that they may be able to use after this webinar so that they can better define their leadership ability or build a vision map so that they can roll that out to their team. So Kevin, if you'll start, the last question that I have before I open it up to the audience is, what is working for you? So what are tips, resources, tools, books, tricks that you've implemented or recommended that show positive results on culture?
Yeah. I guess something that works is part of the reason I went into business for myself a couple of years ago. I started realizing that I had, a group of clients and people that were doing a process, I guess. I don't know, it was just a similarity between a lot of different companies. And I guess there's a training component, and then basically you go out in the field and see if it's working, and then adapt and change it for the next year. It's a really simple approach, and maybe even over simple, but if training is the beginning of making sure that people understand how they can get hurt on a site, and it also can help promote a lot of the things that we're talking about here, vision and leadership and unity and getting to know each other. So that's where you start. See if it's working out in the field. Do audits, check in with people, get feedback. Sometimes people give you very honest feedback. Makes you better at the end of the day, if you actually listen to it, and then change it. Every year you got to change your message a little bit and get better. And you got to use a lot of different resources. In the field, have your workers train each other. Use tools like Carly's online platform, maybe to get younger generation or any generation for that matter, but it's another angle, right? Have formal trainings, a little bit of everything, and then check it out in the field. But and people just want to get home at the end of the day. I think you can get a little bit more out of people if you kind of explain to them the why. Why we have a safety program. It's for our reputation. There's a big financial component to having safety and no injuries, and that can start to build into the pride in the job and into that vision as well. But yeah, I'll stop there, but I have more if we want to get into that at any point.
Well,
I'll say that for later.
Something that you do, Kevin, that you do, I think, a really incredible job with is being that other voice, like to come in and mix it up, so we have great tools for sure, digital tools that you have to have now. And this industry was really underinvested, and that's why we built what we built. But it's one tool in the toolbox. It's great for next gen workers. It's great for transferring knowledge. But the other piece that I think that I've always loved at being in the industry is the kind of team sport. Like construction is a team sport. Yes, you do spend a lot of time doing things, solitary operations, but they're always part of a bigger whole, and so when you can and people will very often work in very remote locations, isolated on their own. And when you bring people in for an annual kickoff meeting, when you bring people in for even a company picnic, just show up with a grill and just that camaraderie of that communal moment, bring in a safety consultant just to share a different voice, because halfway through the season, people are kind of getting burned out on hearing the same people telling them, what might be the newest issue in the industry or out in the field. And so bringing in a new voice is kind of freshen up the whole atmosphere. And then you couple that with some hot dogs and a Coke, and you got like some winning moves right there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at what a hot dog and a Coke will.
I know.
So this past Halloween and stuff, we did a Halloweeny roast, and did hot dogs and sides and things like that. But it just as an appreciation for all the hard work, is kind of a good way to wrap up the construction season, get geared up for snow plowing and transitioning to our winter operations from our summer operations, and so it was a good transitional thing. You got to take a day and just do something for the employees, and show them that you're appreciative of what they're doing, you know, and that you appreciate them coming to work every day, you know, versus blowing in sick, or, you know, when they just don't have, you know, they need a down day. We all need down days, we do, but you know, it's important to show them that you're vested in their, you know, mental health as well as their physical health, you know, as well as their, you know, their career, you know, at all levels.
Oh, you know, John, too, you hit something I think that's really important to recognize is, you know, suicide rates in construction are really high across the country. And I think there's a number of things that are contributing to that, but mental health and well-being is a really key thing. And sometimes it can be a hard audience to crack that conversation with, but just having those moments of like appreciation, or bringing in someone else to kind of give a neutral, you know, ear to listen to some things, providing resources like access to wellness plans. We used to do that all the time. It was like, hey, look, there is a company, in addition to your pension, there is a company wellness plan. So if you just want some reimbursable, we do $100, whatever, an employee for reimbursable. You can use it for a gym membership. You can use it for counseling. You can use it for buying a, you know, one of those yoga balls for your back, anything, you know, wellness related, just to encourage people. Like, they're not necessarily having to talk about it to you, but to encourage them to see that you value wellness, mental and physical, to the point where you're willing to put your dollars behind it. And these are small dollars in the big picture of things.
Yeah.
They very often will respond in a way that you might not expect. And there were people I didn't expect who would come forward for that, you know.
Yeah, and you're touching on something. You're touching on something I think really that's a really valuable way to do any sort of training or buy-in, and that, you know, construction workers like to solve their own problems. So you kind of have to, you know, set the scene and then let it go. And I think like what you're saying with the wellness program, and that's exactly a good example. You can't stand in front of a group of people and say, you know, we're going to talk about wellness today. They need to solve that problem themselves, and you know, like you're saying, and you'll see results no matter what we're talking about with training if you do that.
You give them the resources, they're going to make it happen. Construction is one of the most resourceful industries on the planet. You know, I mean, everything. I mean, my driveway was just, you know, constructed using crushed concrete and recycled asphalt, like road parts. Like, my dad's like, hey, you got a new driveway? Let's bring over some of this demolished bridge, crushed concrete for you. I mean, you know, this is how my dad shows me his love.
We all have our own special ways.
Nice. Thank you guys for that. That was really helpful. I got a lot of good knowledge bombs out of that. There's about 5 minutes left, so I want to open it up to the audience members. If you have any questions for our panel of experts, go ahead and shoot it in the chat. I'm going to give us a minute here. That way we can get some questions going.
How can you get?
We got one question already. Generational differences. Generational differences can affect culture. How can you get generations to better understand one another?
This is I'm glad somebody put this in here. I was going to mention it when John was talking about resources. You can also, what I've seen companies do is bring a retiree back just to do some site visits. You know, you can even partner up a retiree with someone like Kevin, who might be on a job site doing site audits. You know, like safety site audits are one thing, but then you bring them onto the job site with one of your like veteran employees who people will love to see. They can actually have a really dynamic, you can't even plan probably for some of the cool conversations that people would have. And then there's an additional buy-in to safety, because you have people who have respect, who might be, you know, a legend at the company, is all of a sudden showing up on the job site. And I think that can be a really cool thing I've seen people do with people who just recently retired, for example. They're usually sitting at home and they're more than happy to, even just for, you know, a cup of coffee, come up.
But, you know, it's tough too, because when you talk about generational differences, especially in this industry, you know, you got old school mentality, of like Carly was saying before, most of our workforce in the past is, really, has been off the farm. You're on the farm, you're operating equipment on the farm, you get to understand how to run a loader and a dozer and, backhoes and excavators and dump trucks and, all that stuff, because all that equipment is used, in a day-to-day farm operations. And then, as they've kind of outgrown the farm or wanting to move on, it was a good fit, to come into the construction side, whether it's a municipality or, private contractor or whatever. And with that, it's like now there's a big gap now. Now the newer generation of, construction worker doesn't necessarily come in with any kind of background. They're basically coming in with a CDL license, and, it's one of the good things about having apprenticeship programs, out there and stuff like that, and, mentorship, and stuff, is when you catch this newer generation at a young age and you're mentoring them and you're providing them, good leadership and things like that. I think it helps, connect to the older generation. If they have that mindset, I want to learn, and you got some of the older generation that's willing to teach, it's a good fit. But sometimes you get that older generation that's just, leave me alone. I don't want to, this little, punk kid over here, he doesn't know what he's doing type thing. It's hard to really, make that connection. It's almost like it has to be natural. It can't be forced. If you try to force that generational difference, that, and stuff, it's going to do more damage than good. So I think a lot of it comes back to the culture that you have in place in your work environment. If it's open and everyone's buying into it and stuff like that, the younger generation, older generation will somewhat, not say seamlessly mesh, but they'll mesh a little bit better when you set that tone, as a leader.
Thank you. Thank you guys for those last minute tips. So it is 2:59, and that's the end of our webinar. I learned so much during this session and tons of knowledge bombs. So thank you all for your time, Kevin, John, Carly. This was absolutely wonderful. If any of our audience members have any questions about this webinar or want to follow up with any of our panelists, feel free to shoot us an email. I'm going to actually give you Carly's email, so don't give this out to your friends. I'm just kidding. It's Carly, CARLEY at CAHillResources.com. Shoot us a message if there's anything that you want to talk about, and thank you all for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks for moderating, Mariah.
Yeah, thank you, Mariah.
Thank you.
Yeah.